Okay, so before we look at the final section, which is really the dramatic climax of this extract, we need to take a look at some of the form and structure features of this particular text. And the first distinctive one, I think, is an important one in the first section of Lady Macbeth's opening soliloquy. And it's the variations, I think, in the iambic pentameter that offer us the chance to make an interesting point about the rhythmic variation in this piece. So if you take a look at these two lines here, what thou art promised, yet do I fear thy nature. This 12-syllable line here, and then it is too full of the milk of human kindness. It is too full of the milk of human kindness. Another 12-syllable line. Underneath, to catch the nearest way, thou wouldst be great. 10 syllables. Art not without ambition, but without. 10 syllables. The illness should attend it, but what thou wouldst highly. 10 syllables. That wouldst thou holily, wouldst not play false. 10 syllables. In these lines, where Lady Macbeth is reflecting on Macbeth's morality and the nature of his character, all of them strictly adhere to the iambic pentameter. Whereas at this particular moment where she is talking about her own perception of his weakness, I do fear thy nature, it's too full of the milk of human kindness, where she reflects negatively on this moral aspect of his character, Shakespeare expands out of that strict iambic pentameter into 12-syllable lines. And so what we have here then, I think, is through, the lines where Macbeth's morality, which in the end leads him to respecting the social order, is reflected. Shakespeare uses the strict order of the lines. So it's almost as if the lines themselves and their rhythmic adherence, just the way that he sticks to iambic pentameter in these lines, is suggestive of the sticking to the social order that is constructed through ideas and doctrines like the divine right of kings. And then when she's considering here the aspects of his personality that he would need to change in order to upset that order, then we see a variation in the rhythmic pattern. So it seems as if Shakespeare could be deliberately suggesting to us suggesting notions of the disruption of order and of harmony through his variation of iambic pentameter and rhythm. We've already talked about the plosives here in lines 23 and 24. Dost fear to do what should be undone. Those sound features, that plosive alliteration, I think is very insistent and violent, which I think again reflects Lady Macbeth's pragmatism. Further down the page, when she talks about, when she's in the middle of her sort of her incantation of evil, she addresses the murdering ministers. Whenever in your sightless substances you wait on nature's mischief. And I think here both of these types of alliteration, particularly the sibilance of the sightless substances, gives her a sinister sense of malign intent through that sound feature. Importantly here, where she also says, make thick my blood. That syntactical variation, the usual order of those words, would make my blood thick. But make thick my blood, with the adverb here before the object of this particular clause, emphasizes this word, and I think shows us the extent to which she wants her pity and her capacity for morality to be blocked and impeded. Finally, I think looking at the overall pattern of this particular speech gives us an insight into the psychological portrait that Shakespeare creates. We have this very intensive soliloquy that opens the extract, where we get this real sense of Lady Macbeth being analytical and introspective and examining very deeply the nature of Macbeth's character. And then a dialogue where she puts on a show. She is acting throughout this moment. And then we slip back into the real depths of depravity in the final part of the soliloquy. So we have this pattern of soliloquy, dialogue, soliloquy, where we see her true nature as she's forming the plan, a dialogue where she fakes her behavior, and then the real depth of her depravity in the final soliloquy. So it says, I think that scene construction here moves us from the real nature of her inside her thoughts as she's thinking carefully about the plot. The dialogue then communicates the way the circumstances match what she's dreaming up in her plot, and then her resolution, again, the honest portrait of her internal life in the final soliloquy, which shows us again the way that she has quickly formulated this very sinister plan and has completely got behind it with evil intent.